Welcome to Lighten the Legal Career Path. I'm your host, Erica Moore-Burton. Whether you're a new attorney looking for inspiration or guidance, or further along in your career, wondering how to get to the next level, or someone that's just simply curious about the legal world, you're in the right place. We'll be talking to female and BIPOC attorneys not only about their remarkable stories of success, but the challenges they've faced along the way, the lessons they've learned, and their valuable insights about their career and the road ahead. Let's dive into today's conversation. Thank you, Amber Finch, for joining us this morning. So we're going to dive straight in. Amber, in looking at your profile and all of your accomplishments, I'm in awe. And I saw you last year deliver an incredible speech at the Black Women Lawyers Scholarship Lunch. And I think the thing that strikes me most is your humility with everything that you've done, all of your accomplishments. So I wanted to have you as one of the guests on this podcast, just to talk to you about, the secrets to your success. The road to success is never this sort of straight line up. So I want to talk to you about your journey, the highs, the lows, some of your challenges. But let's start with the beginning. Let's hear from you, and let's hear how it all started for you, your interest in law, and take us through your journey.
Sure. Well, first of all, Erica, I'm so pleased to be here, and thank you for inviting me to have this conversation. Wow, I think you're absolutely right that the line or the journey is not straight, and I have certainly had a lot of curves and right turns, left turns, U-turns along the way. But, I would say my interest in law really came from just being a young teenager who enjoyed watching legal dramas on television.
Okay.
I didn't have any lawyers in my family, didn't really know any lawyers besides who was presented on the media. And I just remember thinking that was pretty cool. Let me think about that.
What was your show, by the way? What was the show that you were watching?
Yeah.
Back in my day, it was LA Law. It was LA Law back in my day. I'm aging myself.
I used to watch The Practice a lot.
Okay.
That was probably the main one. And I thought everybody was cool and had, their own little attachments. And everyone looked different. I think that was the other thing, right? There wasn't this sort of cookie cutter image of what a lawyer looked like or could be. And that, for reasons I think I would learn later in my career, really stuck with me, that there wasn't a particular category or look that you had to be. If you wanted to be a lawyer, you could just be you and bring that to the courtroom. So that's where it started.
That was it. Simple as that. I love it. So you went to law school, you went to USC.
I did. Got to college, went to law school. And then from there, once you get into law school, at least for me, it was certainly a must do, right? And in particular, when I was a third year in law school, I got married and had a baby. And so I remember talking to my husband saying, look, we got to not only finish this out, but pass the bar, because otherwise my mom's going to come from you and me. So we got to get this done. And we did. That was really sort of the beginning of the professional journey. And it's been going since then. And I'm just really grateful and blessed for having the different opportunities that I've had in life, for having the challenges and the struggles, as well as the successes, because they all shape me to be the person that I am today and the lawyer that I am today.
Right. So let's go back a little bit there. So just so I heard correctly, so you were in your third year of law school, and you have your child in your third year.
Yes.
Can we pause there, and can you tell me about that? Because that in itself, it's a blessing, but a challenge at the same time. And you haven't even taken the bar yet.
No, I had not.
Wow.
My daughter, my oldest daughter, was born in March. And we, graduated in May, and the bar was later in July. So, looking back on it now in my mid 40s, I'm really grateful for that timing, because it has worked out in my life. But to say that it wasn't challenging, of course, would be a lie. I mean, but
Mm-hmm.
life that's worth it comes with challenges because everything's there to make you a better person. Having my daughter in my life at the time that I did really showed me how to focus and how not to get
Mm-hmm.
distracted. I came out of law school going straight to a big law firm where billable hour
Mm-hmm.
is king. And, so I was like, hey, we need to get in, bill these hours, and go home. I had
Get out,
time
right?
to chill and, kind
Go
of,
out for drinks after work. You're that
yeah.
having kids will focus you in a
That's
minute.
exactly
So
right.
that's
And look, I mean, I did do some of that because that's part of the business
mm-hmm.
too. You definitely have to learn how to
Mm-hmm.
socialize and develop relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But my goal was on making sure that those relationships were meaningful, and
Right.
making sure that I was focused on my job and learning how to be an attorney, really kind of getting my skills under my belt. And it's a type of balance, frankly, that I have been uh, dealing with and navigating my entire career. Blessed for
Mm-hmm.
it. It has definitely, I don't think that I could be one or the other. Being both is
Right.
part of what makes Amber Finch who she is.
Got it. Got it. So you start your first role, Big Law.
Yeah.
Tell us about that first position. Because
Okay.
in these conversations, I want people to like think back,
Yeah.
right, to that very beginning, the challenges, even in that first role, the challenges of being a woman, the challenge of being a Black woman in that environment, and the challenge even of the work.
Yes.
Like, cast your mind back and talk about that first role.
Well, it's interesting because I thought about this later in my career, but as I mentioned, I didn't have any lawyers in my family, didn't
Hmm.
really know any lawyers personally. When I started, I wore a suit to the office every day.
Hmm.
There was a sense of needing to make sure that I was taken seriously. And in the
Absolutely.
moment, I think the thought was more of, I want to show them that I mean business and I'm, going to dress the part. But I think
Right.
in reality, when you come full circle, it is the uniform that sometimes we as blacks or we as black women or we as women feel like we have to
Hmm.
wear in order for people to give us
To take us
the
seriously.
the look that we need to take us seriously, to consider that we have something valuable to contribute. And I
Hmm.
probably did that. Gosh, maybe at least a year. And I remember now thinking about it. I wasn't the only one. I remember there was another black woman who came maybe 2 or 3 years after I did the same thing.
Hmm.
As I sit here as an office managing partner now in another global law firm, I see other minority attorneys doing the same thing. I remember
Mm.
when we were in the pandemic and we had a panel discussion for our African American attorneys, and in particular, this panel had all black men on it, just happenstance.
Right.
And they specifically talked about the uniform that they felt they had to wear.
Mm.
So it's interesting that I don't know that I necessarily put it together then, but I certainly kind of
Right.
over the course of my career realized kind of where that's coming from. But that's the first
Mhm.
step, is to be able to find something in those very early years that makes people sort of take you seriously, gives you the cred in the room.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then from that, it's being showing up, being there. It's the
Mhm.
conversation of make sure that you sit in the front of the classroom and raise your hand.
Absolutely.
It's
Right.
that same idea, all of those little tips and tricks that we had in grade school. They still matter in the law firm setting,
Right.
and just as much as they did 20 years ago, I still think that they do today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when you had your uniform back on, back then, um, were you taken seriously?
I think so. I do believe that I
Okay.
was. I had the benefit of having some really wonderful mentors and
Mhm.
sponsors. It came from, look, it starts with your credentials. I went to a very good college. I went to Stanford University in the Bay Area. And then
Hmm.
locally here in Los Angeles, went to USC. I mean, both of those schools are quote unquote in the top
Top shelf.
whatever
Yep.
percent and have been. And so it starts there. But
Hmm.
you have to demonstrate that you know how to take those skills and apply it. So I was very
Right.
inquisitive, asked a lot of questions, asked for a lot of feedback. Hopefully, took that feedback and then
Hmm.
incorporated it into the next assignment. And as long as you continue to do that, I think you're demonstrating trust to those who are supervising you, to those who
Hmm.
want to give you opportunities. And that leads to the next opportunity. Meeting people, sharing your successes or wins on a matter is important because, again, we're in the business of winning. This is a law. This is a law institution, a legal institution. We have
Right.
clients, and so every little win I try to
Hmm.
share to add to the credibility of what I was doing and who I was working with. I hope
That's
that
great.
that manifested throughout my career, and I'm sure most times it did, but not always.
This show is sponsored by Round Hill Legal Search. For the past 10 years, Round Hill Search has been placing attorneys of all levels with our trusted clients, from AmLaw 100 firms to the solo practitioner. Visit us at roundhillsearch.com for more information, to find great legal talent, or to step into your next legal role. I think we had this conversation when we had a client the other day, and he was, commiserating with me. He was saying, "Look, I've got these associates, and I haven't, we've got this hybrid model now, and when they're in
Yes,
the office, they're behind closed doors. I don't see them,
yes,
right?" And you just mentioned that you were raising your hand, you were getting feedback from your, superiors, and that is so important. And I'm hearing more and more that that seems to be missing right now. Like, individuals, associates tend to be hiding right now. Of course, I think the pandemic has something to do with that, but key, and it seems to be key, to have been a key factor for you in sort of making strides and moving ahead. Can you sort of dig a little deeper on that for me, and sort of emphasize the importance of that?
absolutely. I mean, there's no question out of sight, out of mind still exist in a
Absolutely.
post pandemic world. And if anything, I think that is much more true today than it was, call it 2, 3 years before the pandemic. Um, it is harder to get noticed
Hmm.
because you not only have to show up yourself, but you have to show up for people who may not be showing up themselves.
Right.
And how do you break down those walls? I think the first thing is again, you got to be there, and being there um, can come in a lot of different ways, and you have to sort of navigate through the ins and outs and the workings of your particular office setting to understand what that means. If, for example, you are in an office setting that has a return to work office policy that says you need to be in the office 3 days a week, be in the
Be
office
there.
3 days a week.
Be there.
Like just it's not very difficult. It's not
Right.
always convenient, but the fact is it's never been convenient to drive across town, to fight through traffic, to, get up, get dressed, put some real clothes on, throw
Right.
your makeup on, whatever your routine is.
Fully get dressed.
It's like, right, that hasn't changed. And so until you're at the stage, frankly, where you're feeding yourself and you've got your
Hmm.
own book, you're relying on others to really provide you with those opportunities. And the only way you can do that is if you are meeting them halfway and at least showing up. Um, but you have to do more than that. If you're in the office, to the extent you can, keep your door open, walk down the halls, knock on the doors. If you're trying to get across to folks that are either not coming in themselves or otherwise are in another office, email, call, send a text, say, "Hey, I'm coming to visit, or I'm going to be in the office on Tuesday. You want to get lunch together? You want to get some coffee? Whatever it is." What I see more and more these days is a move towards a transactional relationship
Hmm.
where we've lost the dialogue and the conversation about who who you really are. What else do you
Right.
bring to the table besides being a lawyer?
Hmm.
Um, what about those 4 kids, Amber, that you have? What
Right.
are you? Who's playing baseball? Who's playing volleyball?
Right.
What schools do they go to? You miss that in a 30-minute Zoom invite, because in those 30 minutes that start at 9 and end at 9:30, you're talking about the particular substantive issue for the day. And so I would encourage young lawyers in particular to really think about that piece, because opportunities are given to people who have relationships with those who have opportunities to give. And if you don't allow yourself the chance of developing those relationships, it really becomes a much difficult task to get the opportunities that you desire.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm a member of the Provisors Networking Group, and their tagline is "Know, Like, Refer." So you get to
Mm,
know people, you start
yes,
to like them because you learn more about them, right? You go out for lunch
yes,
with them, and then business is referred to you because of that, right? So
yes,
you said something so key. It's not about sort of that transactional relationship. Put yourself out there asking for a lunch date, or asking for a breakfast date or a dinner date, whatever it is, just so
yes,
people can get to know you and be interested in you outside of, the lawyer, you know? Um,
absolutely.
so that's really a good point there. So for the last 15 years, you've been at Reed Smith, 15 plus years, I think, right? 15,
Just under
is it?
15.
I mean,
Right around then. I stopped counting. It's like birthdays nowadays.
like I stopped counting a long time ago. Tell us about why, number one, why you've stayed so long at this firm,
Yes.
right? And the transitions at this firm, and how you've prepared yourself for the transitions at the firm. How were you? Did you raise your hand for opportunities right now? And congratulations on your new promotion, being the global chair of the Insurance Recovery Group. That's
Thank you.
amazing. There are so many pieces that I want to talk to you about there, but let's talk about your career there, and the fact that you've been there for such a long time, and the transitions within the role.
Sure. So I came over to Reed Smith as an associate. My prior firm went under in what I call the last economic crisis.
Okay.
And so I was thrown in a situation where I was um, really looking for what's the next job. And it's everything from, not only do I have to pay my bills, but by this time I think I had 3 children. So there was a little bit more urgency, if you will, to the matter. um, but I also knew where I was in my career, and I said I want to make sure that I go to a firm where I could have longevity if I wanted to. It was my first time kind of experiencing the nature of businesses and how they could crumble in an instant. And so much is out of your control. But what is in your control is making sure that, again, you are creating relationships, continue to grow, and working on your business development opportunities. So that's what I was looking at as an associate when I came over. Um, Luckily got the job and was able to get integrated right away into the insurance recovery group. And, to this day,
Round Hill
the
Search was
people,
established by
not
leading
just in that
industry
group,
search
but in my
consultants.
office and across the firm, is the number one reason why I stay, why I've stayed so long. We, as law firm lawyers, spend a lot of time in this position doing our jobs. It is the number two, in some instances, number one situation where you're spending the most amount of time. And so being able to work with people that you care about, that you can grow with, that teach you, that support you is important,
Right.
and has been. And I'm very grateful for my Reed Smith colleagues who have, frankly, been there along the entire way. So I was an associate when I came over, and shortly thereafter, I would say within a couple years, I believe, I was promoted to partner. And then the real test begins.
Mhm.
Then it's okay. So what are you going to do with that?
Right. Here's the title. What are you
Show me
going to
the
do?
money, right? So, and again, I am just really grateful for the people around me because I didn't feel like I was in a silo. I was in a
Mm,
group. I was in a group that wanted to grow the business and include me as part of that growth opportunity. I was able to not only work and expand our client relationships within the firm, at large and within the group, but also externally. By that time, I started, this is again, dealing with that network, going back,
right.
being involved in Black Women Lawyers, for example, and other like organizations, and telling people what you do, and asking for the business. And ultimately, those things started to materialize. So through the course of my time as an income partner at Reed Smith, I think that I started to demonstrate to the firm that not only was I a likable person, somebody who cares about diversity and equity, inclusion, but someone who could actually be a business generator.
Right.
And so, because of that, again, more support behind me to kind of throw out in front of me, and allow that to happen. Shortly within, I think, 5 years, I made equity partner, and then it just seemed like everything kind of started rolling. Made equity. I felt like business just kept booming every year. Was better than last. Knock on wood. Let's keep that up.
That's
And
like keep it rolling.
and then, I was named managing partner of the Los Angeles office, which is no small feat in a metropolitan city like this. And then,
Absolutely.
as of the beginning of this year, was named to the global chair of our practice group. So it's amazing, amazing, amazing. I do not for a second take anything for granted, and just very blessed to have a lot of people in my corner, because you don't get to this position without having a cheerleading squad
Absolutely.
from around the world.
If you're enjoying today's conversation, please share with another attorney in your network and send us your questions to podcast@roundhillsearch.com. When we are recruiting at Round Hill for associates and we're having these conversations daily, something that comes up with even senior ones that are coming to us for placement is, oh, okay, I don't have a book of business. And it's like, what have you done since you started at the firm to show up to be in the position to develop business as well? So I'm curious how you showed up, but how did you show up to be in a position, and how did you manage to develop the book of business that you now have? Was it through existing clients? I know that there were existing clients at the firm, but how do you get the how has the snowball continued to just keep
It
going?
really just goes back to relationships. And I think that there's no one way to generate business, but it's always linked back to relationships. And those relationships can be internal. For example, when my very first book, if you will, came when I moved over to Reed Smith as an associate. I worked very, very closely with the partner at my last firm, the firm that was going under, and had established a relationship with her as well as the client on a case that we were working on very heavily. She was going to another firm, and could not take the case with her because of conflicts, could not bring an associate
Okay.
with her because of the economic status of the world at the time. And so talked to the
Right.
client, and the client said, sure. And that was my very first book that I was able to bring over to Reed Smith.
Fantastic.
Um, and having that first one gives you the motivation to say, okay, I can do this, and let's keep going.
I can do it.
And then in
Right.
terms of just
Right.
what I've developed since then, especially I would say for the first half of my career at Reed Smith, if not more, a lot of it was internal business, firms,
Hmm.
clients, or meeting with other partners outside of my group who needed insurance assistance for their clients. and I was a little bit cheaper than the one that they usually would go to, but they knew that we worked very closely together, and so thought that I had the skill set to be able to help the clients. So you understand and maximize what your leverage points are, and then you just start doing it. And I'm always looking at opportunities to do the same for others. If there are other senior associates or junior partners that are coming through that are looking to build their book, if there's a way that I can help them, I try to do that. I bring them on a pitch. That's the first thing. Can I go to the pitch? Can I communicate with the client?
Right.
What can I do to help you? And what we business generators have to recognize is there's a lot of investment time, right? It's everything is not
Hmm.
billable. When you are putting together
Right.
a pitch, you got to put it together for free to demonstrate to the client
Right.
why they should choose you. So just keeping those things in
Right.
mind, I think, just help the process. But knowing people and continuously showing up and building relationships is what brings in the business every single time.
Yeah, absolutely. So in your role as managing partner, tell us a little bit about that and how that role changed and how you prepared for that transition. And I'm curious, were you just handpicked or did you raise your hand? Like how
I
did it come
guarantee you
about?
I didn't raise my hand. Remember that I came into that role after the pandemic. So in this
Right.
transition where we were trying as an industry, as a city, as a member of corporate society to come back to the office. It's probably one of the most difficult
Right.
challenges that I've faced thus far. But again, feel
Okay.
very blessed to have had that opportunity. I will say that prior to being tapped, I had taken on other leadership positions within the firm. So there's a sense of quote unquote
Hmm.
raising your hand, right? Immediately prior
Right.
to being the office managing partner, I was the chair of our firm's business inclusion group for African Americans. And that was in
Hmm.
a time during the pandemic, during the George Floyd movement. So it wasn't
Hmm.
just what is the Black History Month program we're going to put on today. Those were serious conversations that we were
Right.
having internally as a firm and where we wanted to be on issues that impacted not just our people, but our clients and the community surrounding us. And I remember even in those situations having conversations with members of our senior management team and members of our executive committee. So the show up part was already established in that leadership role that I had on a diversity committee, right? At the end of the day.
Right.
And I hope that through that, members of the senior management team saw that perhaps I might portray some of those leadership skills in the role as managing partner and was asked to take on that role.
Absolutely. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. So basically, you exhibited those leadership skills already during this very difficult time, and so that it was sort of a natural next step for you.
Well, natural, I don't know,
That's
but definitely the next step.
So, you moved, and I want to go back to talking about the
Mhm.
DEI piece. But you moved into the managing partner role. Tell us about that role, and completely different to anything you've ever done before. A lot of responsibility on your head. Tell us about some of the highs and lows of being a managing
Absolutely. I
partner.
would say definitely the highs of being the managing partner was being able to work very closely with a lot of folks right here in the office in a very challenging time, in particular, the staff. My administrative
Hmm.
staff were just very, very supportive of me and really wanted to do a good job. Was They were really looking forward to going back to the idea of having people back in the office and having a culture of community that we had pre-pandemic. So that was
Hmm.
very much the high, being able to work closely with people on those kinds of strategies. the hardest challenge was actually getting folks back in the door. Initially,
Right.
Reed Smith, quote unquote, reopened its US offices um, at a time where Los Angeles as a city still wasn't quite there. I remember as we were getting
Hmm.
ready to reopen the doors in LA, the county still had not removed its policies on offices, on mask mandates, and all of the other health orders that were out
Right.
there. And so it
Vaccinations and
wasn't
all
even
this.
clear
Yeah.
whether or not we were going to open the doors on it did. And I think the mask mandate went out that Friday before the Monday we were supposed to open. But of course, as
Mhm.
a result, there was a lot of hesitation, still a lot of fear with a lot of people's minds, anxiety. People were still dealing with friends and loved ones that they were watching over who had health sensitivities, et cetera. So we were dealing with a lot of that, a lot of vaccine requirements, mask mandates, other county official requirements on our office that may have been different, for example, than our counterparts in our Texas office or in our Florida offices.
Mhm.
So those were very, very challenging. And even when we got over that, by this time, people living on the
Mhm.
west side got comfortable and didn't want to drive
Right.
downtown. So,
Downtown? We didn't want to drive. We didn't have to go on the other side of
so we
405.
still
Like,
had to
no
deal with
way.
that. And I think we're still dealing
Yeah.
with that and trying to strike the right
Yes.
balance on what makes most sense. And for now, we're hybrid. Um,
Okay. What are
we
you,
are
3 days in the
days in the
office right
office,
now?
or more, I should say, um, don't work from home more than 2 days. So, for example, if you're at a deposition or if you're out on a client pitch, that would quote unquote count towards that compliance
Okay.
policy.
Yeah, I think that flexibility is important, and we continually counsel our clients on having that hybrid model. I just had a conversation just last night with a lawyer whose firm is middle of February, 5 days a
Yeah,
week in the office. And honestly, I just don't think it works. Personally, I don't think it works, and we'll see how it pans out. But so you are on that
we
hybrid
are
model.
for now. Again, I think corporate America as a whole is still trying to figure out the right balance, and we'll
Yeah,
see where we will be. I enjoy coming
yeah,
into the office. I don't have binders and papers all over my dining room table, or so this is
right.
perfect for me.
Leave that at the office. So now moving into your
Yes,
new role as the global chair, what's that role going to look like for you? Are you ready for it?
absolutely ready for it and very excited to be in this position. Again, relationships. I can't stress that enough.
Mhm.
Already, I've been in this position maybe 10 days or so when the official announcements were made. And already I've had so much support around the world from my group in me taking the helm. So knowing that you've got a group of people that want to see you succeed really just adds to your fire and your motivation to make sure you do a great job in leading the group. So very, very excited about that. What does it mean? Well, it means that I am now looking at a global position as opposed to a local one. Um, I'm getting ready to get on the road and go and visit some offices where my constituents, if you will,
That's exciting,
reside. So I
right?
will be braving the cold and hitting offices like Pittsburgh and Philadelphia and Chicago
Okay.
and the likes. And then I'll also make some trips internationally as well, because we do have insurance lawyers out in our London offices and in some of our European offices as well. So yeah, it's going to be a big travel commitment.
Wonderful. So you're going to be visiting my hometown in London.
Yeah,
Then I love
it'll
it.
be a big travel commitment, but I'm looking forward to it because I'm again really want to make sure that I'm just networking and managing those relationships.
Traveling to London will be amazing. Have you been to London before, by the way?
I have.
Okay.
So, but it's been a while. I'm looking forward to getting back there.
Okay, that would be so exciting. I'm your host, Erica Moore-Burton. As the president and founder of Round Hill Legal Search, I've spent over 2 decades connecting with incredible attorneys day in and day out. I decided it was high time that we share some of their remarkable stories, lessons, insights, and inspiration with the world. Join us as we have wonderful conversations with our guests, or simply a session talking about some career tips, advice for you as you light your own legal career path. To just talking about, as we mentioned before, sort of the personal side. You have 4 kids. How
Yes.
does it work in your world? How have you been able to have this amazing career? I have 2 kids of my own, and it's a constant juggle. Um, how have you been able to manage it along the way when it comes to time, mental health, taking care of Amber? How does it work in your world? Because people are looking at you and thinking she's Superwoman. Like, let's just be honest.
No, I'm just a mom who loves her job. That's
Right.
all it is. I really I love my family. Enjoy spending time with them, and so I make time for them. And but I also don't want to lose my job because I love what I do. So I have always been the one that gets on the soapbox and says you don't have to choose, you just have to want them both. And when you want them
Absolutely.
both, you find ways to make it work. Is it challenging? Of course. I think if I was um, a stay-at-home mom, it would still be challenging.
Hmm.
Like, there are challenges associated with being a mother, and certainly they're exponential when you have more than one.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, my husband has been an absolute amazing teammate when it comes to taking care of and rearing our kids. And, we were blessed to have our parents along the way here and there to help watch or help take care of when necessary. And now they've gotten to the age where we're able to worry about that piece less and
Hmm.
more about just being there for them,
Right.
going to their games, cheering them on, making sure that they are doing what they need to do academically. So that I think is the challenge, but it's a beautiful challenge. I love being there for my kids. My oldest daughter, the one I had at in law
In
school,
law school. Okay.
is graduating this year, and she plays volleyball for Howard University,
Oh,
and I
wonderful.
love being her biggest cheerleader. Right, I just love that. I've loved watching her play over the years. Used to travel with her.
Hmm.
My son is a freshman in high school and is playing baseball, and I'm excited about watching him play. Those are little special moments. We travel together. You got to find what works and make it fit.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you carve out time on a week to week basis, sort of specifically, or is it just as and when? How structured are you with work life, family life?
I try not to work on the weekends.
Okay.
I can't remember the last time I was in the office on the weekend. Of course, now though we have our phones, right? So I could still respond to emails and those natures. And if we've got briefs that are due, I'm still working on them. And I definitely bring my computer with me on vacation,
Okay.
but I don't not take the vacation, right?
Right.
If the computer has to come, it has to come.
It's
And if
coming
I've
with
got to
you.
be by the pool with the laptop open for a couple of hours in the sun with my sunglasses on,
You're gonna do
there it is.
it. Got it.
So yeah, you make, again, if you want both, you find a way to make it happen.
Yeah. No,
And
absolutely.
I'm all for that.
Absolutely wonderful. And I think that's important for people to know that you can have it all. You're doing it, you have it all right now, but there are ways in which you have it all as well. So let's move on to the DEI piece, which is
Yes.
still at the forefront. we know about what's going on in Utah and with the schools and them dismantling DEI initiatives in schools, which is very disappointing. But it's also bleeding over to the business world. Obviously through George Floyd, we had firms posting their statement on their law firm website. Um, Many of them have dug deep into their DEI initiatives. Many, I think, will see this as an excuse to take their foot off the pedal as well. I think Reed Smith has been at the forefront of, even before George Floyd. I was having lunch with John Leno at one point, and you guys have always been ahead of the curve with this. Um, Talk about your role at Reed Smith. Why have you been at the forefront, and what have you done specifically at Reed Smith to sort of keep your foot on the pedal and move this forward so that we're seeing measurable results as well?
Sure. Well, being a Black woman lawyer at a law firm kind of puts you in a position where a spotlight is on you to see whether you'll succeed, how far
Absolutely.
you'll succeed, etc. Whether you want that spotlight or not.
All eyes are on you.
All
Absolutely.
eyes are on you. I
Yep.
mean, it's just a reality. It has been the reality of my practice since day one. Um, After my first firm, which had a few African American attorneys that were more senior to me, by the time I was a third year at a different firm, I was the most senior African American attorney in my office basically for the rest of my career. So from being a third year associate forward,
Mm-hmm.
no matter which firm I was at, no matter the type, the size, um, I was the most senior lawyer. So I was the most senior African American lawyer as a third year associate, as a senior associate, as a partner, as an equity partner, you name
Right.
all the
All day
titles.
long.
Uh, so anybody that comes in is looking at you
Mm-hmm.
to see, especially for minority attorneys, to they look at you as um, potentially a hope, or to see how far that person can get, to see whether or not the path is open for me.
Right.
So that it just comes with the territory. With that, my goal, knowing that and understanding that, my goal has always been, I don't want to do this by myself.
Right.
And I want to make sure that we move that needle. What can I do to help? Getting involved in organizations like Black Women Lawyers, and not just getting involved in those organizations, but making my firm participate and support me in those organizations
Absolutely.
is critical.
Yeah.
When I became the president of Black Women Lawyers Association, my firm was right there with me. I would invite them. We would have tables at the installation. Our logo was on the step and repeat. And we made sure to take the story back to talk about the scholarships that we were giving, or the speakers that were there that night, to make sure that there was, a bridge,
Yeah.
so that they understood the importance of this work and the talent pool that was available
Right.
in communities of color. And I just kept doing it. And I keep doing it. I to some extent, I can't help myself, because
Right.
nowadays I see my kids in these positions. They're looking for jobs. They're graduating from school. They need a resume. They need a referral.
Right.
And so I want to make sure that I'm there for someone, just as I hope someone's there for my daughters and son.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think you hit on something. It's one thing to be a part of these associations like the Black Women Lawyers, but going back to your firms and really encouraging them, because you are building a bridge right there, right? And I think that is a really important key that you hit on there. So as far as Reed Smith and how internally you have been able to move the needle, you're part of the Mansfield Diversity Lab as well. But how internally, day to day, are you moving the needle? Because I think that a lot of other firms could really take a page out of Reed Smith's book and continue with doing this work and not keep taking the foot off the pedal.
Sure. I think, especially in the positions that I've been in as an equity partner, as a managing partner, and now as the global chair of a practice group, the first thing is to make sure that you're still having those conversations in the rooms.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a subject that we have somehow left because the Harvard decision came out,
Right.
or because certain organizations or governments are making different decisions. The question is it still important to us? And if so, what are we doing about it? How are we doing it? Of course, making sure that we're compliant with the law,
Mm-hmm.
but also making sure that we haven't lost sight of what the goal is.
Right.
Having discussions about diversity internally and with our clients
Mm-hmm.
is important. Our clients still demand diversity in a lot of sections. So what are we doing? If we can't demonstrate that we have diversity, what are we doing to go ahead and get that diverse talent?
Right.
Making sure that it's just part of the puzzle. And then also, once we're bringing folks in, making sure that we give them some resources to succeed.
Right.
I have an open door policy. I talk to anybody and everybody that wants to talk to me. As a managing partner, I never said, no, I'm not going to communicate. I've got young lawyers that come in my office all the time.
Right.
And that includes minority lawyers, because they see their struggles or their pathways as are there ways to navigate through them?
Mm-hmm.
What is this? And sometimes they're looking at things the right way, and sometimes they're looking at things the wrong way. And you want to make sure that you are helping them, guiding them, and more importantly, ensuring that they can get through whatever their obstacles are and to keep pushing,
Mm-hmm.
letting them know that they are fabulous lawyers and they are doing a wonderful job. And don't get caught up on someone who put red ink all over your page. That's how you become a good lawyer.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
That's a good thing,
Yes.
because the last thing you want is someone to say, nice job, and it really sucks.
Right.
You want them to give you that feedback.
Yep.
But just being supportive and letting them know that they are talented, and getting them off of second guessing themselves and getting away from imposter syndrome, I think, is probably the most important component of our mentorship of younger lawyers. And it's something that I do on a daily basis. Young lawyers, students, it doesn't matter, because I would love to see as many of us that can succeed.
Absolutely, absolutely. And talking about that imposter syndrome, look, we all suffer from it, right? We've all suffered from it at some point in our careers. How have you handled it over the years? I know that for me, I have what's called the win list, the Erica's win list, right? And I write down my wins all the time. So when you have those moments of doubt, I go back to that list and I can see, well, you did this, and you did this, you accomplished this, just to give you that extra, validation and that boost. So how have you handled sort of that imposter syndrome in the past?
Well, that's great. I'm going to take notes on that one. One of my partners, I walked into his office and he's got all his accolades on the wall. He says, when I get down, I look at the wall. I think we all have that similar experience, whether it's a checklist or, your accolades on the wall. It's just literally just reminding yourself of how far you've come. And for me, it's that. Last night, in fact, I was talking to my youngest daughter, who's 10 years old, and she had her Martin Luther King paper that she was getting ready to turn in on. And I said, who else do you know are firsts? And we start naming some firsts. And I said, now what about Amber Finch? Amber Finch has got some firsts too. Let me tell you about those. And, and it's reminding me about the glass ceilings that I personally have shattered.
Yeah.
Is like, where's the next one? Let's go. Let's figure it out.
Let's get it.
And knowing that at this stage in my career, no one's giving me anything at this stage. These are earned, these are hard work, and they're competitive. So being able to stand before the community as an office managing partner of a $1 billion+ firm in their Los Angeles metropolitan city office, or being the global chair of the insurance recovery group, which itself is one of the preeminent insurance groups across the globe, those are big deals.
Yeah, it's huge.
And so I don't lose sight of that. And I have to remind myself that it wasn't, no one's quote unquote giving me a chance.
Right, right.
You were put in this position because they saw something in you. You are adding value. And so go ahead and be you and do your thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. You've earned every single accolade that you've been given, and they keep coming. You received so many awards. I was looking at your LinkedIn profile last night, and I was just like, my goodness, excellence in law, top women lawyer, powerless, Lanterns Award, best lawyers in America. I mean, they keep coming. What is the X factor? What is the X factor? Because this is extraordinary.
I don't know. I know statistically I'm a unicorn, right? I accept that
Right.
statistically. But I don't know that I'm any different than any one of my Black women lawyer sisters. Um, I just love what I do. I love the people that I work with. I enjoy my clients and doing well for them. It's not about winning an award. It's just about doing the job.
Right.
And whatever comes with that, I'm just grateful and blessed for it. And I hope that the awards aren't necessarily for me, but they are a testament to others, to what those who are looking can be.
Absolutely.
Getting an award from the Black Women Lawyers Foundation, for example, allows me to say a speech in front of young lawyers and young law students that are coming up, and hopefully there's something that I can say that will inspire them. So
Absolutely.
that's how I look at it. Is I'm just a servant doing the job that is necessary to be done. And I hope that my journey inspires others to be great, because there's so much talent out there
There is.
within our community. And all we have to do is understand and know that and step into our greatness.
Yes.
And game's over at that
Yeah,
point.
absolutely. So what I'm hearing is you have just shown up, Amber. You've just shown up in every aspect of your career. You have shown up every single time, and that has just lit your path forward. So if there's one thing that our listeners can take away from this, I think is really showing up in your life, right? You got to show up
Yes.
and keep taking those steps forward, and nothing ever happens in sort of your comfort zone. I know that it hasn't
Right.
always been comfortable. So it's exercising that muscle, right? Every single time. Okay. And pushing the boundaries further for yourself. So I love that about you. And yeah, really am inspired by that as well. Okay. So we talked a little bit about sort of how you take care of yourself. We've talked a little bit about business development. I think that we can jump into Erica's Fun Five, actually, at this point. So I have 5 questions, and
Okay.
whatever comes to mind for you. But what is the best piece of advice that your mother or any other influential woman in your life has given you?
My mom reminded me of a quote in the Stanford admissions application: academic excellence. She was like, I don't care what, you need to have academic excellence. So I always remember that, that try to be excellent in everything you do.
Yes.
Uh,
I tell my kids that all the time. I'm like, you know what? How you do the little things is how you do the big things.
That's right.
close the milk, right? Put the cereal back in. I'm like, how you do the little things is how you do the big things. So we want excellence in little things, and that'll be their quote from their mother. But I love that. Academic
Yes.
excellence. Love it. Let's see, the most impactful book that you've ever read is?
The Bible changed my life. Still does.
Love that.
Always getting something from it.
Love it. The one goal that you haven't accomplished yet that you still plan on doing before you expire?
Before I expire. It's like that milk you talked about, huh?
Right.
I would say retiring comfortably.
Okay. What does that mean
Yes.
to you, retiring comfortably? What does that mean to you?
That means not stressing,
Okay.
and just enjoying my time after this professional journey is done. I hope that I have time to have that chapter in my life.
Got it. Okay.
I don't want to die doing this.
Right.
I want to have that extra chapter.
Exactly. That's the third act, right? Okay. Your favorite quote and why?
My favorite quotes. There are so many. I think stand is one. It's a one-word quote, and it's just stand. Stand in the face of your adversities. Stand when it's good, but stand when it's bad. It's just remembering when you get down, stand up, stand back up again. Don't forget that part.
Right.
Stand.
Love that. Love that. And the best movie of all time, Amber, is?
That's a hard one. I love movies. And you're going to laugh. I don't know if you've seen it, but The Goonies.
The Goonies.
Yes, back in the 80s.
I was going to say, that's an old one, isn't it? The Goonies.
I love it every single time. It's just so much in there. Camaraderie, tenacity, luck, and just good old-fashioned fun.
Love it. Love it. Amber, thank you so much for joining me today. I feel like there's a part 2 to this because I've enjoyed speaking with you, and there's so much more that I want to dig into with you, but I know that you got to get back to being the amazing woman that you are. So thanks for taking the time out of your day to chat with me. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Erica. It's been my pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in and listening. I'm your host, Erica Moore-Burton. If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure that you share and subscribe to get new episodes as they come out. If you're an attorney looking for new opportunities, head to www.roundhillsearch.com to get in contact with one of our recruiting associates. And don't forget to send your career questions to podcast@roundhillsearch.com. Until next time.